Begin today the Gemara on Daf Kuf Chaf Aleph Amud Aleph, 3 lines from the top of the Amud. So it said in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda Oimel Loi Kol V'chulu. So the Tana Kama of the Mishnah said that there's a time frame of 3 days that until that point you see a body, you can identify who it is. After 3 days, the body changes, it could get bloated, or you can't anymore recognize the features and you can't say who it is. Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava comes and says, how could you give this time frame of 3 days? Depends on the climate, depends on the situation, depends on the person. It's not always the same. So the question of the Gemara is as follows: When he's arguing on the Tana Kama, is he coming to be more lenient? Is the main point Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava is coming to say is that you could actually sometimes identify a body after 3 days? Or he's actually coming to be more stringent. He's coming to say, sometimes even within 3 days, you can't recognize this body. Tashama, so I'll prove this to you. From the following story. Dahu Gavre de Tova Bekarmi, this person drowned in Karmi, some river or whatever. Vaskua Behadya, and his body was pulled out of the water in another place, Behadya. Labasat Lasayayman, and it was after 3 days. And va'ansaver Rav Dimi min Nerdah ledebisu. They identified the body, and Rav Dimi of Nerdah said that his wife could get remarried. That's one story. Visu, another case happened. Ahu Gavre de Tova bediglis, the Itva bediglis, this person that was drowned in the Diglis River. Vasku agisher de Shavistana, and he was pulled out by the bridge of Shavistana. Va'ansaver Rabba ledebisu, apume de Shishvini. And Rabbe is married off his wife. Rave married off his wife. Apumi de Shishvine, based on the testimony of those that brought him. Lobasa Chabmisha Yom, after 5 days. So we see in both of these stories that after 3 days or after 5 days they were able to identify the body, and they relied on this. Now, if Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava that argued on the Tana Kama regarding the time frame of 3 days was coming to be more lenient and saying that even later you could identify the body, so in a David, Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. So they were following Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava's opinion. But if he's only arguing and he's coming to be more stringent, to say that even within 3 days you can't identify the body, but after 3 days he would agree that for sure you can't. So in a David Keman, so whose opinion are they following when they identify these bodies after 3 days? So the Gemara answers, there's no raya from these stories. Shani Maya de Tzamsi. Water, the bodies that remain in the water is different. It contracts the body, it leaves it in its condition that it could be identified after 3 days. But a body that's left exposed out of the water could get bloated, and that's different. Frag the Gemara, but for Amre, didn't we learn earlier, Maya Marzu Makkah? That water, that if you have a body that a leg was amputated and so on, so in the water is keeps it from getting aggravated, which seems like that the water keeps it. So the water again. Sorry, the other way around. Maya marzamaka means that the water actually aggravates the wound. So it seems like the water opens up the wound, and it not that it contracts it. And it says the Gemara Hanimili heichedike makkah. When this leg was amputated, so with here, the water will cause it to be aggravated, and it will cause it to open up. But if you have a full body that's in the water and there's no makkah, nothing was cut open, mitzmitzamis. Over here, it leaves the body contracted and it doesn't get bloated, and therefore, after 3 days, you could still identify the body. But then the Gemara adds, as soon as the body was pulled out of the water, they saw the body right away. If you waited, I'm not sure how long of a period this means, but if you waited, mitzvah tofach, the body will get bloated and you cannot identify the body. Zogt, the Heilige Mishnah, nafal lamayim, a body fell into the water, a person fell into the water, bein sheyesh lem seif, whether this is water that you see the end of it, the Gemara will describe what this refers to. Bein she'ein lem seif, whether it's a body of water that you don't see the end of this water, ishta yasura. But so even though it seems like this person drowned and we don't see that he ever surfaced back, came up from the water, his wife will still be usher to get remarried. This is not proof that he's dead. Rav Meir says, there was an individual, there's an individual that fell into a big pit, and he came up after 3 days. And therefore we see that you can't prove, even though he was there 3 days, which is a longer period of time, seemingly, than a person could survive in a pit. But nevertheless, after 3 days, he came out alive. The Gemara is going to speak about this incident. Rabbi Yosi disagrees with Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yosi says, Maise besuma, there was a story with a blind person. Sheyarad litbol b'mayra, he went down to Tovel in a cave. V'yarad moishcha yachrov, and his guide went following him. V'sho kedei sheteitze nafsham, they remained there in this cave long enough that they couldn't survive this. And then they see us and they allow their wives to get remarried. So this is an example of a mayim sheyesh lem seif, water that you see exactly where it begins, where it ends. It's a cave or it's a pit right in front of you. And so there, in such a case, Rabbi Yosi, that is, says that the wife could get remarried. But v'shuv ma'aseh ba'asya, another incident happened in Asya, be'echad sheshulshalu liyam, an individual that was lowered down into the water, and v'layolsa biyadam, and then when they tried to pull him back up, so they all they brought up was l'raglai. It was only his leg that came up. The rest of the body remained underwater. So Amru Chachamim. So now the Chachamim said regarding this, minar kuva l'mayla. If the part of if what came up was only our kuva l'mayla tinase. So in other words, the foot that was cut off from the body was from above the knee. So then he can get remarried because we know he can't survive this. If the part of the foot that came up was below the knee, so then the wife cannot get remarried because possibly this person far away came up from the water and we just don't know where it is. So this is an example of mayim shein lem seif, that it's possible that in a further location that we can't see, he came up. Tana Rabbanan, so we learned in the Braisa, Nafal Amayim Ben Sheyesh Lem Seif, Ben Shen Lem Seif, a person fell into the water, whether it's a pool of water that you see its end or you don't see its end, Ishtei Asura. The wife, either way, is forbidden to get remarried. Divrei Rab Meir. Chachamim say, like we learned in the Mishnah, this is Rabbi Yosi, Mayim Sheyesh Lem Seif, if it's water that you see its end, Ishtei Muteres. Then the wife will be mutter. You see that the person didn't come up. Shein lem saif, if it's water that you can't see its end, ishtei asura. Then the wife will be asur. Now, hechi dami ma'im shesh lem saif. What is the definition of water that have an end? Amar Abaye kol she'oimid v'roye me'ar baruch haisav. Where you're standing by this pool of water, you can see all four sides of the water, so you have in your vision exactly the end of this water, so you can see if the person came up. There was an incident with a person, the Tova Bagma, the Samki. He drowned in this lake of Samki. Ansava Rav Shila l'debisu. So Rav Shila allowed his wife to get remarried. So now this is a case of Ma'im Sheyesh Lem Seif. It's a lake. Actually, this, as we'll see, this was a case of Ma'im She'en Lem Seif. It was a large lake, a place that you cannot see its end. But still, Rav Shila remarried the wife. Amalei Rav l'Shmuel. So Rav says to Shmuel about this psak din of Rav Shila, Tana Shamte. Let's excommunicate Rav Shila for giving such a psak din. Rav thought that Rav Shila was aware that Chachamim said Ma'im Shein Lem Seif, we don't remarry the wife, and he still went ahead and remarried her. Amalei, so Shmuel said to Rav, wait, let's find out why did he say this? Nishlach le bereisha. Let's first ask him what's going on. What was his psak din? So Sholchale, they sent and they asked him as follows: Ma'in shein lem seif. What's the halacha? Water, a man drowns in water, shein lem seif. Ishtei asurei muteres. Is the wife forbidden or permitted to get remarried? Shalach lahu. So Rav Shila answered them: Ishtei asura. In such a case, the wife is forbidden to get remarried. Then they asked him another question: Va'agma de Samki. This lake from Samki, Ma'im shesh lem seif and Ma'im shein lem seif. Is it considered to be water that have an end or don't have an end? Shalach luhu, so he answered them, Mayim she'en lem seifu. This lake is considered, this is a pool of water that you can't see its end. So now they asked him, Umar, my time avadachi. So the master, why is it that you allowed her to get remarried? So he answered them, Mitatina, you're right, I taka made a mistake. What was his mistake? Anas avri, I thought, kivin the kova v'kaimi, since this is a lake, and therefore it's water that's in one place, it's compared to water that have end. In other words, what he thought was, when you have a river that's flowing, so the flow of the water can drag the body to a very far place. But a lake, even though it's a large lake and you can't see the end of the lake, but nevertheless, it's a lake that's in one place, and therefore, it's like Mayim Sheyesh Lem Seif.
Mayim Sheyesh Lem Seif, the svar behind it is that you're standing there the whole time.
And you can see, right, correct. And you can see with...
Mayim Sheyesh Lem Seif, but you are not standing
Right. Correct.
That's what it is, stagnant.
Right. So, but over here, the mistake of Rav Shila was that he thought that this water is stagnant, so therefore, we're not going to expect the body to end up in the other side of the lake somewhere. Velohi, but he explains, I made a mistake about this. Why? Kivin the Ike Gali, since there are waves even in this lake, it's not maybe rushing like a river, but still there are waves there. Eimer Gali Ashpulu. It is possible that with these waves, this body that drowned here was brought to another side of the lake, and therefore you can't be mata this person. So Bekitzer Rav Shila retracted his psak din. He didn't say the psak din because he wanted to argue with the Chachamim. He made a mistake. Now Kari Shmuel alei the Rav. After this whole incident, Shmuel said regarding Rav, Lo yu'unu l'tzadik kol oven. Look, you see over here that the Eibusher doesn't allow anything bad to happen to a tzaddik. That the Rav was going to put him into a chayrim, and then the Eibusher saved him, that he didn't put him into a chayrim. Kari Rav alei the Shmuel. Rav said regarding Shmuel, Chua b'rev yayitz, that I got good advice from you to first ask him, first find out why he gave this psak din. Don't rush to give it to put him into a chayrim. Tanya in another brayse we learned Omar Rebbe. Rebbe said, Maisa b'shnei b'nei yodam mechamrin machmayrin b'yarden. Two people that were putting nets into the Yarden River to catch fish. V'nichnas echad mehem l'mechila shel dogim. And one of them went down there and he found himself in this cave where there are fish there. But it's a cave. It's sort of underwater, but it's a cave where you're able to be there with your head above water. So he went in there and v'shaka chama, and the sun went down. And he couldn't find the opening to get out of this cave. So his friend that was on top over there waited to see whether his friend is going to come out. He waited long enough to the point when he knew that person can't survive there underwater that long. And then above he came and notified in his house that this person, my friend, he drowned. What happened the next morning? The sun shines, and he found the opening of this cave. Uba, and he comes out, and he comes into his city, he comes to his house, and he finds that there's a big hesped taking place in his house, that they're eulogizing him. Omar, Rebbe, so when Rebbe saw this, what happened? That this person that, so to speak, drowned is here alive after all this time. So he said, look, kama gedailim divrei chachamim sha'amru, how great are the words of the chachamim that they said, ma'im sheshlem soif ishtei meteres, water that there's an end to it, the wife would be allowed, she'ein lem soif, water that you don't see its end, ishtei asura, the wife is forbidden, you never know, he may have come out somewhere. But now the Gemara asks, based on the story, if the reason this person was saved was because he found this cave and he was able to keep his head above water, so we should say the same thing even when you have a pool of water like a lake or whatever it is, even if you can see its end, you should also say that it's possible that he found some cave there that he's able to remain alive. Answers the Gemara, let's be concerned that it's possible that you have there this cave of fish. Answers the Gemara, usually by a lake you don't have this cave of fish where the person can stay alive. So therefore, in such a case, we're not concerned that happened. But it's possible, and therefore that's one of the reasons why Chachamim say that you can't determine the person died even after he's there for a long time. Omer Ravashi said, when Chachamim said that a person that drowned in Mayim Shein Lem Soif, the wife is still forbidden, Hani Mili be'inish alma. That's if it's just an ordinary person that drowned there. Aval tzorbe mirabanan loy. But if it's a Talmud Chacham that drowned there, in other words, a person that has a name, everyone knows who he is. So over here, you can't. We're not going to say that he might have come out somewhere and he's still alive. Why? Because if he came out alive, so there would be a rumor about this. People would know about this. But the Gemara says, V'loihi, this psak din is not true. Makes no difference if it's a plain person, or it's a Talmud Chacham that people know about. The halacha will always be the same. The evidin, after the fact, if his wife got remarried, we allow her to stay remarried, to remain married, that is. But l'chatchila, we do not allow a woman to get remarried if her husband drowned in Mayim Shein Lem Soif. So what you see here from this piece of Gemara is, this whole chumrah that a man that drowns in Mayim Shein Lem Soif, that we don't allow the wife to get remarried, is the chumrah midrabanan. Really, in rave cases, a person that drowns in an ocean of water, and he may have come up somewhere in the other side of the world, it's mamish, the percentage of such a thing happening is very small. But with the Rabbanan, they were machmer about this. But therefore, with the Yeved, once she got remarried, we allow her to stay married. Tanya Rabbi Gamliel said, I was traveling on a boat, I saw another boat, that broke, and then it was drowning, and I had a lot of tsar because of a Talmud Chacham that was in that boat, and that was Rabbi Kiva. And in my mind, Rabbi Kiva definitely drowned there. When I came to the dry land, I find Rabbi Kiva that he's sitting there and he's done and he's telling me halachas. I said to him, my son, who brought you out of the water? So he answered me, Daf Shosfinon is damali, aboard from the boat. There was what came to me, and and every time there was a wave of water that came towards me, I bent down my head and I was able to swim. I would go with this daf, this board to the shore. So now from here Chachamim said that they learned from this another thing. Anytime a Rasha comes to attack a person, don't try to fight back. Just bend down your head until he passes, and you can continue going. Don't try to fight him. Similar to what Rabbi Kiva did with the waves of water that were coming over him. Rabbi Gamliel again commented and said in that time, how great are the words of the Chachamim Sha'amru that said, Maim sheshlem soif muteres. When a person drowns in Maim sheshlem soif, the wife is allowed. Maim she'elem soif asura. But in water she'elem soif, she's forbidden to get remarried, like we see here. Rabbi Kiva was saved. Similar story, Tanya, we learned in Abrayis, Sam Rabbi Kiva, I was traveling in a boat, and I saw another boat that's being drowned in the water. I had a lot of pain because of a Talmud Chacham that's on it. And this was Rab Meir. And then Alisi Limedinas Kaputkia, I came to the country Kaputkia, a faraway place. I find that Rab Meir is there, he's alive, and he's teaching halachas. I said to Rab Meir, Bini, my son, who brought you out of the water? So he told me, Gal Tardeni Lechavere. One wave of water picked me up and threw me over to another wave, and the next wave to the next wave, until I was brought over here to the dry land. Rabbi Kiva said at that time, and you see, the Gemara keeps on repeating this point. Apparently, it's hard for us to relate, to understand this concept that it's possible that a person drowns in an ocean that's Ein Lem Soif, and we could even think that it's possible that this person comes out alive. So the Gemara is bringing you stories of what happened in Chachamim because of these. We see these stories and they're machmer. Tana Rabbana, we learned in Abrayis, Naval Lagoy Varoyis. Person fell into a lion's den. You can't say testimony that he was killed if you didn't see, if you weren't there to see what happened. So you don't. It's not for sure that the lions killed him. If a person falls into a pit with snakes and scorpions, mid and olive. Over here, you could say testimony that he passed away. Even falling into a pit full of snakes and scorpions, mid and olive, you cannot say testimony that he would die. Possibly he's a chaver. Chaver means, as Rashi says, he's a person that knows how to say a certain lachash, that something that you say, snake shower. Okay, some kind of words he says in order to the snakes to not touch him. So therefore, we cannot be sure that he died. The Tanakama that disagrees with Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, he says agav itzitza, because of when he falls in there, so the pressure that he makes in the place, maskile, they are going to harm him, they are going to kill him. Tana Rabbanan, and Abraisa we learned, Nafal toich kif shoneish, a person falls into a furnace of fire, meid and olive, we can say testimony that he died. Liyayde meleya yayin v'shemen, a person falls into a large pot of wine or oil that's cooking, meid and olive, you could also say testimony that he got scolded from this and he was killed. Mishum Rav Acha Amru, the name of Rav Acha was said, Shal Shemen, if he falls into a hot pot of oil, meid and olive, then we know that it's boiling hot, and we can say testimony that he died. What happens to this oil? When it boils up, it flows over into the fire and it actually makes the fire even stronger. But if he fell into a pot of hot wine, so then we can't say testimony that he died, because when this wine spills over into the fire that's heating it, it actually extinguishes the fire. So it could be that this wine here cools off. Amrulai, so they told him, no, told Rav Acha, you can't rely on this idea. Because as you see with the nature of water, if you spray water at fire and it doesn't extinguish the fire, it'll eventually actually become even stronger. So that's what happens with this pot of wine as well. So it said in the Mishnah, Rav Meir said a person fell into a pit and he came out after 3 days. So Tanya and Abraisa we learned, Rab Meir, they said to Rab Meir, you can't bring a raya from there. Don't bring a story of a miracle that happened to prove that because of this we can't remarry someone. That's a nest that happened. My Maisinism, why is that considered to be a nest? That a person survived in this pit for more than 3 days. Is the reason because you can't eat and drink for 3 days. So how could he survive there? But it says in the Megillah, it says that Esther said that the Yidden should fast 3 days and shouldn't eat or drink for 3 days. So you could survive without eating or drinking for 3 days.
They meant even by night.
That's what you see here in this Gemara. It's interesting. In this Gemara you see that she meant that they shouldn't eat not by day and not by night either. Now in other Madrashim it says they did eat in between, but over here it says even for 3 full days. Ela d'loi nayim. The point is, why is this a nest? Because you couldn't sleep for 3 days. And if you can't sleep, it's impossible to survive. Person that makes a shvuah, that he's not going to sleep for 3 days, this is a shvuah shav. What he says is a lie. It's impossible. So therefore, malka naisai, we give him malchus and v'yashan altar. And we allow him to go to sleep right away. So the shvuah that he made is a lie. Is impossible. And so that's the reason why this person couldn't survive it for more than 3 days. So therefore, that's considered to be a nest. Rav Meir says it's not a nes, my timer. Why does he bring a proof from this story? The way this pit was built was these arches upon arches, and there is a place where the person could lean upon and sleep there. Rabbanan say the sheisha hava. This was a marble pit, and therefore it's slippery, and you cannot lean on anything, and he couldn't sleep there. Rab Meir says it's impossible that there wasn't somewhere that he was able to hold on a little bit and fall asleep for a little bit, and therefore the fact that he survived these 3 days is not a nes. Now obviously, the story has to be in such a case where the person had his head above the waters and he had oxygen for 3 days. That's what we're talking about over here. So we learned another story here. There was the story of Nechunya that used to dig pits. He dug the pits for the Yidden that came to be Oile Regel so they should have water to drink. What happened? Shenafla Lebayr HaGadol, that his daughter fell into a big pit. They came to tell Rab Chanina ben Daisa what happened. So now, in other words, this Nechunya, he himself was digging the pits for the purpose of Yidden using this water, and his very own daughter fell into one of these pits. We learned this Gemara before. Where was it? No, in the Gemara it was in Shkolim. Okay, so it looks like it was in Yerushalmi in Shkolim. Okay, so what happened? Shah Rishayna, and the first hour he davened and he said, Amalem Shalom. He said, she's peace, she's okay. Shniya Amalem Shalom. The second hour he came and said again, don't worry, she has peace, she's okay, she's alive. Shlishis came the third hour, Amalem, he tells them also. She came up. Go, you'll find her. She came out. And so now when she came out, Amalah Biti, Mi Helach, my daughter, who brought you out? Amralai, she answered and she said, Zochar Shorchelim Nizdamali, there was a ram that came by here and sensed that I was here and stopped by the pit. And then in the Zokin Manhigoi, there was an older individual that was leading this ram and brought me out. Okay, so who was this? Eliyahu Navi, or whoever this was. Rashi here says Avram Avinu came and took her out. Amrullah, so they said to Rab Chanina ben Daisa, Naviata, are you a prophet that you knew that she came out alive? I'm not a prophet, I'm not the son of a prophet. Ella, how did I know she came out alive? Something that this person, Rab Nechunya Chayfeshichin, he's a tzaddik, and he himself occupied his time in digging these pits for the benefit of the Yidden. Yikashal B'zare. So his daughter, one of his descendants, should die in this pit? Impossible. So I knew that she's going to come out alive. Amar Rabbabe, but Rabbabe said, Afal Pikain, nevertheless, Meis B'nai Batsama. There was an incident that happened regarding this Nechunya Chayf Shichin, that his son died from hunger. Shenemar, and there was a certain thing, a certain reason why this happened, that his son died. Shenemar, the pasuk says, the Sviva of Nisara Ma'oid. The ones that are closer and they're around the Eibishter, what this means is as follows: Malamed Shakadosh Baruch Hu medaktik im svivav kachot hasayra. The Eibishter is very particular with great tzaddikim that are right around the Eibishter, like a chot hasayra, even the tiniest thing, they are punished for this. And Rab Chanina learns it from a different pasuk. Keil naretz b'seid kedoshim rabba v'noira akol svivav. The awesomeness of the Eibishter is even more for those that are close to the Eibishter, and therefore this happened to the son of Nechunya Chayf Shichin.
So he says that he's not a Navi because he knew that she couldn't get her.
This wouldn't happen to her,
but
right?
But he knew when she got out.
He knew exactly when it is that she got out. Yeah, no. Zag Teilige Mishnah, Afil Shama, again going back to the point over here regarding saying testimony of a person that died. So now, Afil Shama min anoshim oimrais meisish pleini. Even if you yourself did not see that this person died, but you overheard women speaking to each other and they were saying, did you hear that this person died? Dayoi, that's enough that you could not come say testimony that you know that this person died. Rabbi Yehuda says, Afil Shama min hatinoikis oimrim arena lispod v'likvar esish pleini. Even if you overheard children saying that we're going to eulogize and bury this individual, they could say this, that they know that person died. Ben shum miskaven, ben sheinim miskaven. Now, when this yid is saying testimony, whether he's coming and he's intentionally saying the testimony that this person died, or whether he's stam speaking not intentionally to say this testimony, either way, you could accept his edus. Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava says, Be Yisrael, if it's a yid that's telling you that someone died, Afal pi shehu miskaven. So then, even if he intentionally saying the edus that this person dies, we accept the edus, we trust him. When it comes a guy that tells you that someone died, if he is coming and saying the edus intentionally, and the Gemara will explain what that means, we don't accept his edus. Okay, but the Gemara starts off here with this, what it said in the Mishnah, you hear children saying that they're going to eulogize and bury someone, we could trust that person died. In fact, the Gemara, why? They said that they're gonna go, but maybe they never ended up going, maybe they made a mistake. Amar Rav Yudah Mashmuel, the Ka'amri, they were saying, Harenu Boen, Melisbon de Malik Varsish Pliny. The way to read the Mishnah is, they're saying, we're coming from a Levaya. We're coming from this person's Levaya that we eulogized and buried him. But again, the Gemara asks, how do you know that this was a Levaya of a human being with this name? Maybe they had a grasshopper or some creature that passed away. And they gave this grasshopper a name of the same human being, and that's what they meant. But they're not even referring to this person that passed away. Answers the Gemara, no. The Ka'amri Chaim v'chein Rabbanon Havo Hasam. These and these Rabbanon were there by the Levaya, and v'chein Sabdani Havo Hasam, and these were the people that were there that eulogized him. So there are more details that these children were saying, and that's what you can rely upon to know that this person died. So the Mishnah said, when it comes to a guy that says this eidos, it depends if he's intentionally coming to say testimony that this person dies, then we don't trust him. But if he's not coming to say eidos intentionally, then we do trust him. So what does this mean? If when he's saying the eidos, we see that his intention is that he wants to allow this woman to get remarried, then we don't trust him. Because it could be he's lying. But if he's just coming to say testimony that her husband died, but he's not interested in being mad to her, he just wants to say the facts that her husband died, so then we could rely on what he's saying. He's saying the truth. So now, what's the difference? How do you know? So Rav Yosef said as follows. The guy comes and says, this person died, and then he adds, allow his wife to get remarried. So he's trying to be mad to this woman to get remarried. So maybe he's only saying it for her benefit and to get remarried, and we don't trust him. Meis stam, if he just comes and says, this person, her husband died, so that's a person, he's just saying edus that her husband died, but he's not interested in knowing whether she's going to be allowed to get remarried or not. Itmenami Amar Ishlakish said the same thing. If he comes to be mad to her, then we don't trust the guy. If he's just saying testimony that her husband died, then it's an edus. Rabbi Yochanan argues in this. Rabbi Yochanan said, wasn't there a meiser with Oishia, the great Rebbe? Shehitiram, or there's another gears there in the Gemara, Shehitris, he argued, Im Shmeinim v'chamishim zkenim, with 85 elders, about this subject. Amalahem, so Oishia Biribi said to these 85 elders, when do we not trust this guy if he wanted to try to permit this woman to get remarried? But if all he did was he said testimony, then we do accept his edus. And these 85 elders did not agree to him. So we see that this is not the pshat in the Mishnah, as we see that they argued with him. So then what is the pshat in the Mishnah? So when it says in the Mishnah, that by a guy, that if he's intentionally saying what he's saying, so we don't accept his eidos, what does this mean? What this means is, if a guy is speaking offhand, he's just in conversation or he's saying something and he's not b'chlal trying to say eidos at all, then we trust him. If he's coming to us and he's intentionally saying a testimony about what happened, then we don't trust him. Kiyahu, like what we saw, the story that happened, this guy was announcing and he was saying, Ma Nike Bechivoi, who's here from the house of Bechivoi? Ma Nike Bechivoi, who's from the house of Bechivoi? Shachiv, Chivoi passed away. He wasn't coming to the Bezdin to say an edus, he was just saying to the people of the house what he saw happen. That's called Masich Lefitumai, that he's just saying, he's repeating something that he knew. And based on this, Rav Yosef allowed the wife to get remarried. Another incident, there was this guy that came in and was saying, because of this Parshas Rizah, this horseman, this very quick horseman of Pumbedisa that passed away. And Rav Yosef allowed the wife to get remarried. Or Rav is the one that allowed the wife to get remarried. So again, these are all examples of a guy that's Masiach Lefituma, he's saying something without even having intention to say an edus. There was a guy that came and he was saying, who is from the house of Chasa? Tova Chasa drowned. When Rav Nachman heard this, Rav Nachman also said, I could swear in the name of Hashem, Ochlu Kavri Lachasa, that Kavri, fish, came and swallowed up Chasa when he drowned. Medibure de Rav Nachman, so because of what Rav Nachman said, Ozla de Bisu, that is, his wife went, the wife of Chasa, and she got remarried. The Chachamim didn't say anything about this. So now, what do you see from here? What did this guy say? The guy did not say, I saw that he died. The guy said, I saw that he drowned. So now we learned before about a person that drowned, that it's a Mayim She'ein Lahem Soif, it's possible that he came up from somewhere else. Ravashi said, Shema Mina, so we could learn from this incident, Ha-dam Rabbanan, Mayim She'ein Lahem Soif, Ishtei Asura, this that Chachamim said, person that drowns in water that you don't see the end, that his wife is still forbidden, that's only before the fact. Once she went and got remarried, so we allow her to stay married. There's another version of that story of what happened there, and that is Ansava Rav Nachman Lidabisu. Not that she went and got remarried on her own. Rav Nachman herself went and married her off. Omar Chase Gavre Rabbe so what he said was Chase was a great person, a very great person that people know who he is, a famous person. Isa the Salik, if it was true that he came out from the water somewhere far away, Kalis Lilamilsa, there would have been a rumor about this. Everybody would have known about this. Okay, but the Gemara says this version is not true. Veloihi, we can't accept this version of the story. Why not? As we said already before in the Gemara, Loishna Gavre Rabba, Loishna Lav Gavre Rabba, person that drowns, it doesn't matter if he's a great person, a famous person, or not a famous person. The Yevedin, bid the Yeved, if his wife got remarried, we allow her to stay married. L'chatchila, but l'chatchila we don't allow this. One more story, let's learn for today. Ahu Ayvik Kechavim, there was a guy, the Havakam Leili Yisrael. He came to a Yid and he tells the Yid on Shabbos, K'toil aspasta, b'shadil l'chevoi b'shabata. Cut this aspasta. This is where the grain before it grows tall. So this is used like for the animals to eat. So he tells him, cut it on Shabbos and give it to my animals to eat. So he's forcing this Yid to be Mechal Shabbos. And then this guy tells this Yid, V'iloi katilna, v'iloi, if you're not going to do this, katilna loch, I will kill you. Kid katilna leplani bar Yisrael, like I killed another Yid. The Amrile, when I told him, Bashali kedere b'Shabbos, cook for me a pot of food on Shabbos v'le Bashali. He didn't listen to me, and he didn't cook the pot of food, and I killed him. The katilte, and I killed that individual. Shama de bisu. So now that person's wife heard what this guy said, that this guy killed her husband. That's what he said. He killed her husband when he didn't want to cook the pot of food for him. She came to ask Abaye, could she rely on what the guy said to now go and get remarried? So Abaye didn't want to answer this. Shahisa tlase rigli. Abaye waited 3 rigli to answer this. What does 3 rigli mean? So one pshat Rashi says is, he waited over 3 yomim tovim when the chachamim come and gather. He wanted to ask different chachamim about this question. But there's another pshat that Rashi says, rigli actually refers to a yard site of a tzaddik. And then the yard site of a tzaddik, Rashi here says, everyone would gather and they would come to his kever and they would make a yeshiva by his kever. Okay, so here you have this Rashi that talks about what they would do on a yard site of a tzaddik. So he waited, he wanted to wait to ask, what's the halach in such a case? Could you rely on what this guy said? So finally, Amalai Rav Ada Barava said to this woman, Zil kamed Rav Yosef, go ask Rav Yosef this question, the Charev Sakina, because he's a very sharp knife. He'll be able to answer you. Azla Kamei, she came to him, Pashat Ma'amas Nisan, and he answered her from the following Mishnah. It says in the Mishnah Azai, Ovid kechavem shahaya moiche peris b'shuk. A guy is selling fruits in the marketplace, and va'amar, and the guy says, peris halalu shal ar lahain. These fruits are from the first 3 years, they're from a fresh tree from the first 3 years that are arla. Or shal azike, or they're from azike. Rashi has 2 pshatim. Either azike refers to a place which is during the Shemitah time, that it's a guarded field in the Shemitah time, or Rashi says azike is a place in Eretz Yisrael. And he was saying that these are fruits from Eretz Yisrael. Shal netar avayin, or it's the fruits from the first 4 years. It's in the 4th year of when it grows. Lo yama klum, we don't trust this guy. Why not? Lo niskaven and alashbiach mekhay. He's only saying this because he wants to tell people that the fruits that grew on this tree, that this tree is from, it's from a fresh tree and it's good quality fruits. Therefore, we can't trust him. So basically, Rav Yosef was telling this woman that it's the same exact thing with this guy that came and said that she killed your husband. He was only saying it because he wanted to scare this person, that he wanted him to cut this grass for him. So he was scaring him. So he's telling him, and I also killed someone else when he didn't listen to me when I asked him to cook. But you can't trust what this guy is saying. This is not called Masiach Lefitumai.